You are the captain of a sinking ship. As you feel that the sinking is your fault, you decide to go down with the ship instead of evacuating. It is only when your ship hits the bottom of the ocean and you are still alive that you notice that something is off. I should have fought harder. The engineers, they had told me countless times of the stress her hull had taken. And I had reported it to the company, and spoken of the danger we were in. But they said to carry on as normal. That it would be fine. That if I refused to sail, I would be out of a job. So I sailed. I couldn't leave my crew alone with a new captain, one who didn't know her like I did. If I heard later of a disaster around it, I couldn't live with myself. But I would look out for my crew. At least I knew they were all safe. All lifeboats had reported every member was present. The cargo would be lost, but these were mere trinkets. Lives were saved, as they should be. But I refused to leave my post. I should have fought harder, so this was my fault. And in the way of captains of old, I would pay the price by resting with her bones on the ocean floor. I watched as light faded, the broken ship disappearing beneath the surface. Her metal creaked and groaned, pressure increasing with each centimeter we sank. Her instruments failed one by one, as I heard parts of her breaking. But the bridge held, taking me deeper with her. It was peaceful in a way. Knowing there would be no hope for me. I would keep her company until the end, as she held out for me. This old girl had been with me for many years, I could feel her holding me close. When her strength failed, I would cross with her, into the endless seas of the afterlife. It amazed me, as soon black was all I saw. She persisted, doors holding firm, glass keeping back the crushing depths. She shouldn't be holding in this deep, but here I was, still able to breathe, in the small pocket of air beneath the ocean. Still alive, far below a point where she should have crumpled. I felt a shudder, thrown off my feet. Her bridge fell sideways, knocking me around. Yet in the light left, I could see clouds of sand and silt, cast up as she settled on the ocean floor. Her final resting place, and mine as well. I knew I shouldn't be alive to see it, but here I was. Alone with her. Something flashed by, as I sat with her, keeping my breathing steady. There was no need to panic here, not anymore. My fate was surely sealed. Instead I just watched, hoping to see some deep sea life now before I too laid down to rest. Who else could say they had seen this far below, separated by a thin sheet of glass? Another flash, scales reflecting the bridge light. It was fast, but large. Larger than anything I expected to see, but who was to say what lived here? A tap above made me look. Pressed against the glass behind, I saw a face. It was flat, two thin slits where nostrils would be should it have a nose. Large black eyes stared at me, mouth agape with human-looking teeth. Its head was bald, covered instead with silvery scales. Another pressed nearby, followed closely by 5 more. My calm shattered, being gazed at like a zoo animal. This was terrifying, as these dwellers watched me. I saw one pull away, getting a good look at their body. It was long, like an eel, 2 arms giving a human appearance, if only as a silhouette. Scales covered them entirely, bar over the webbing between their fingers. It held a spear of some kind, as it swam away, soon disappearing in the gloom. I waited beneath their watch, my breathing turning frantic. I didn't expect to be in such a way, held close by my old lady, watched like some sort of exhibit. The one that swam away eventually returned, coming in with one I suspected was older. Ripped scales marked old scars, covering much of their body. They were larger than the others, nearly the size of a car from what I could see. In their hands they held some sort of seaweed, strands floating around. They swam to the door behind me, reaching for its handle. I froze as their nails scraped it, before it was pushed open. But there was no flood of water as I expected. It formed a barrier somehow, as the older thing reached its hand through. It gestured to me with the now limp seaweed. Their free hand mimicked taking it, putting it into their mouth. Their eyes stared at me, unblinking through the water. I could almost feel them telling me to eat it. To obey. Perhaps this was the afterlife. Did I die already, and not realize it? This might be a punishment for my failing, being beguiled by water spirits. But at the same time, it felt real. There was nothing else for it. I was already dead, that I knew, even if my body hadn't caught up yet. What more harm could this possibly do to me? I took the cold, slimy plant, giving it a sniff. It just smelt salty, with little else to notice. I took a bite, shivering at the texture. It was rubbery, though its skin coated my mouth in a slick layer. The taste was reminiscent of old cabbage and ranch dressing, with a bite that made me gag. But I still swallowed it, as this creature seemed to want. They nodded, poking at the surface of the water barrier. It broke all of a sudden, a wave crashing through, soaking me instantly. I didn't even have time to take in a breath, not that it mattered as I was knocked from my feet. It forced the air from my lungs, as my eyes bulged. On instinct I took in a breath, water forced into my lungs. I scrabbled at my throat flailing. I couldn't breathe here. I was drowning. I was. Fine? My chest didn't scream for air. The water felt almost pleasant, cool within me. The beings nodded, giving me a grin. The old one held up their hand, scratching into nearby glass with their nail. It was slow, as they went over each line multiple times, but eventually they moved their hand away, letting me see the word they had written. Safe.